I don't know what Colorado has got to figure out a way to run the ball. We're about to get the truth on Colorado here in the coming weeks. So the fun is over. And now it's time to get down to the nitty gritty.
Greetings and salutations, and welcome to the Odd Coaches Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Keith Adams. You can find the Odd Coaches Podcast on YouTube, Spotify, iHeart, Podbean, or wherever you get your podcast. And with me today on this Throwdown Thursday edition, team leader himself, Captain Extraordinaire, and 1/3 of Run TMG, G Sumner. G, how you doing, man?
Feeling good, blessed, and highly favored. Happy to be here.
All right. So on today's Throwdown Thursday, segment one, we're going to go around the territories, around the country, talk about all of the conferences and what's going on. In segment two, I want to know why on a lot of things. So I've got a why segment on why some things have happened. And in segment three, we're going to talk about things strictly for entertainment purposes only. But first, let's go to the ACC first, G. Wake and Florida State were unimpressive. Shout out to Boston College's Red Bandana game. Please, fans, if you have a chance, read the story about Wells Crowther. Duke, UNC, Wake, Syracuse, and Louisville are all 3-0, but they ain't no good. In terms of a national setting. And the current top teams was Florida State, Duke, Miami, and UNC. Any thoughts on the ACC this week, G?
I actually caught the Florida State and Wake games, was going back and forth. Well, I saw North Carolina and Duke as well. Florida State, I think we did what we saw a lot of in college football this week, which was teams looking ahead to the schedule really getting underway. By all measures, they were supposed to get Boston College out of there. And they fell behind early, and it was a struggle all day, even to the point where they almost gave up a lead. So I don't think it's indicative of the team they are. Are they really the third best team in the nation? I'm not sure. But win and survive, that's kind of the name of the game in college football, and they were able to do that.
All right. And the American, South Florida hung with Bama. I was very surprised by that. Memphis is 3-0. Current top teams, not really. I mean, if I have to pick one, it's Memphis. So we'll move past the American.
Let's keep it moving. South Florida, shout out to them. They had a great defensive day. Bad quarterback play from Alabama, but they came to play.
Yeah, and South Florida shouldn't be bad. I still don't know why they're in Tampa. They're in a major minor conference. They got the weather. But anyway, I'll move. So in the Big 12, Texas did not impress in their win over Wyoming. BYU did impress in their win over Arkansas. Kansas State had a bad loss to Missouri. Miami of Ohio beat Cincy, and Ohio beat Iowa State. What are y'all doing? You can't lose those games. Stop that. Okay. And the current top teams, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and BYU. Any thoughts on the Big 12? And you don't have to if you don't want.
No, just speaks to more parity that we're moving to, something we haven't seen in college football in a long time. Kansas State looked bad yesterday, so that's the end.
But they lost on a 61-yard walk-off, so
yeah,
that's a bad way to lose.
It's a tough way to lose, but it's a game they were. I guess what were they favored? Yeah,
they were favored -4. But I digress.
Sorry about that. But I think your 3-teamer made up for it. But yeah, much ado about nothing this week in that conference.
All right. Big Ten. Michigan State had a tough week, to say the least. Minnesota, I'm sorry. Minnesota lost to North Carolina. Iowa actually scored points because I know it's part of their contract with the offensive coordinator to hit X amount of points a week. Rutgers and Maryland are 3-0, and the current top teams are Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, and Iowa. Hey, folks, the Big Ten is still a 3-team race. Enjoy your early success. Rutgers is undefeated, so who are you playing? But Rutgers, I'm not wasting time. I'm not. We're not doing that. HBCUs. Hampton beat Howard in the Battle of the Real HU. Other than that, nothing overly important happened this week. I'm sure the party after the game was well attended. I'll just all right. Group of 5, Conference USA, nothing major. The MAC beat up on the Big 12. Iowa State lost to Ohio, and Miami of Ohio beat Cincinnati. So good job to the MAC. And MACtion on Tuesdays will come back. I think that starts on next month on Tuesday
Love the
nights. So Tuesday night MACtion.
yeah, man. Love
All right, Mountain West Conference. Air Force is handling its business. Nice showing for Wyoming against Texas, and Nevada had a nice showing against Kansas. Colorado State should have beat Colorado, but Jay Norville's comments bothered me, and we'll have more on that in segment two. UNLV did beat Vandy, and Fresno State shut out Arizona State. Can't blame Herm Edwards for that one, G.
play to win the game. Hello.
All right, because Herm is gone, and the new guy got shut out by a Mountain West team. Okay, and don't tell me you can't turn over a roster in a year, but that's a shoot. Sun Belt Conference. South Alabama beat Oklahoma State 33-7. South Alabama beat Oklahoma State 33-7. Oklahoma State, you're a Big 12 team, but notice I waited to the Sun Belt to talk about you. ODU hung with Wake, and James Madison beat Troy in the game of the week for the Sun Belt Conference. And again, we'll talk about JMU segment three. The Independents, Notre Dame is 4-0, and Army beat UTSA. So the American Conference, I don't know if you want Army in there. We're going to spend a little extra time with the Pac-12, though. I cannot believe I'm saying we're going to spend extra time on the Pac-12. Colorado beat Colorado State. It's a great game. I stayed up till halftime, and then I couldn't do it. G, any thoughts on Colorado before I ask some tough questions?
Yeah, I know where you're gonna go here in a minute, but I thought it was a good win. Again, what we saw in college football yesterday was a lot of teams playing, being played a lot closer in games they were favored to win pretty big. Colorado was no different. And there was a lot of bulletin board material on both sides coming into that game, and Colorado State, to their credit, showed up. They showed up. Man, I don't know what Colorado has got to figure out a way to run the ball. We're about to get the truth on Colorado here in the coming weeks. So the fun is over. And now it's time to get down to the nitty gritty, but survive in advance, find a way to win. They were able to do that. Clutch performance from Shadora Sanders. He took them. I watched that game until it ended, both overtime.
Wow, I can't do it.
And they got the ball 2 minutes left, down by on the 2-yard line. He took them 98 yards to get that game tying touchdown and 2-point conversion.
And the 2-point conversion.
Yes,
All
sir.
right. So some quick hitters on this one for me. Just the game itself. Travis Hunter is out. I will ask Robert about those plays because I thought they were some cheap shots. That's me. Coach Adams thought some of those shots were cheap. Colorado State's not very good, and they hung out with Colorado. Travis Hunter's a big deal, though, and him not being in the game, both on offense and defense, you could clearly see it hurt the team. But as you said, G, they're about to play Oregon. They're about to play USC. Dion is already National Coach of the Year, so you just need to focus on getting your sixth win and becoming bowl eligible. Because, again, you're not very good, but the story is good, but your team's not very good. But, again, we're very happy for Colorado. We'll talk about the noise in terms of the coaches in segment two. Moving on, Washington, Oregon State, Washington State, Utah, all are still undefeated, and they are the top 10. They are the top teams in the Pac-12. So moving on finally to the SEC, Bama looked bad. Okay, Bama looked bad. Now, I want you to think about the last couple of quarterbacks they had, man. They had Jalen Hurts playing on Sundays. They have Tua playing on Sundays. They have Bryce playing on Sundays. They had Mac Jones. He's playing on Sundays. These dudes they got now should be playing on Friday. I'm sorry. They're not very good. And Bama should not look like. Bama scored 17 points against. So I forgot who they played already.
It was South Florida, and seven of those.
Yes.
Some of those points were a walk-off touchdown with about a minute and a half to go.
Yeah, that's not good, man. Georgia looked bored. Okay. So I'm not gonna go, skies falling on Georgia, but they look absolutely positively bored. It reminded me of the Great White Hype when you got all this noise and stuff, South Carolina's pipping around, and then they were like, oh, yeah, I actually want to play. All right, let's win this game, go home. And that's kind of how I felt Georgia was playing. I wish Will was here, Cotton Man. Florida looked good. Uh,
Oh man,
and messed my Tennessee bet up, but go, good for them. And top teams: Georgia, Alabama, begrudgingly. Tennessee drops. Ole Miss moves up, and LSU is kind of hanging around. Any thoughts on the SEC before we close, sir?
I mean, business is as usual, exactly what you expect. But I don't look at any of those teams. This is not unbeatable SEC this year. You
No.
know, these are Georgia, like you said, just a little bit of looking bored, and we saw it all over college football. Their defense is still there, and they turned it on in the second half. But yeah, not much to report here this week.
Yes. All right. So when we get back, I have one of my former players here, and we're going to actually talk about the bulletin board material, what the coaches said, and how we would look at it from a player and coach perspective. We'll be right back on the Odd Coaches podcast.
The reviews are in for Dr. Keith Adams' book, Finding the Balance, My Personal Journey to Academic and Athletic Success. College professor and student athlete academic expert Dr. Lisa Rubin said, "There is nothing out there like this book, so I do hope people will pay attention and give it a read." Former George Mason standout Fallon Campbell said, "Consider this book an opportunity to work directly with Dr. Adams just like I did. I assure you that there will be something you can take away that will be useful to you throughout your personal journey." Ryan Waite, a recent college graduate who is a software engineer, said, "I like how the book is based on research, which makes it good for general students as well as student athletes." The book serves as both a memoir to Dr. Adams' 30-year academic and athletic career, as well as an instructional guide to assist student athletes, parents, coaches, teachers, and administrators navigate through the challenges of finding a better balance between academic and athletic success. The book includes over 15 personal stories and anecdotes from Dr. Adams, along with numerous former players and colleagues from a variety of sports and endeavors. You can order your copy at www.ckasaveproject.org. From the main page, simply click CKA Save Project Services and order the Find the Balance book. For more information, contact Dr. Keith Adams by email at cka@ckasaveproject.org.
Welcome back to the Odd Coaches podcast. In segment 2, I got a lot of why on my mind. I asked why a lot this week. So I'm going to start off with Jay Norvell, head coach of Colorado State, and why. So Rams coach Jay Norvell took a shot at Deion Sanders' habit of wearing a hat and or sunglasses at news conferences. And he said, and I'm going to paraphrase him, "I don't care if they hear this in Boulder. I told ESPN, I took my hat off. I took my glasses off. When I talk to grown-ups, I take my hat, glasses off. That's what my mother taught me." The comments drew applause from the show's host and the live audience. And gee, that gave me pause. Okay. And it gave me pause because I have been taught in the coaching world, keep everything focused on the game at hand and check all personal issues at the door, because it's not about you. It's about your team competing against another team. And the great performance that his team had was still marred because that's what we were talking about. And gee, you played for me. You know, Adams is overprotective of all of you. How did you feel as a player about what Colorado State's coach said? And I want you to take it from the Colorado State perspective before you talk about it from the Colorado Buffalo perspective. The floor is yours.
Interesting twist there from the Colorado State perspective. Well, first of all, from the Jay Norvell perspective, this was his chance in the spotlight. That's what it screamed to me. There's not a black man who didn't love Deion Sanders if you grew up watching him, whether it was, despite the charisma, the flamboyance, he went out and played and he worked. He spoke the game. He knew the game. He's always been respectful. So to take the cheap shot out of nowhere, screamed. He thought he was doing it live in front of a local Colorado State studio audience. And even though he said, "I don't care if this gets back to Boulder," he didn't intend. He meant that for the in-house audience to fire his guys up. the community around him. And to his credit, even though it spun to a place that he wasn't expecting, his team showed up. They looked ready for the moment. Now, what cost them was what you spoke about earlier. Some of the discipline issues, dirty hits. Their best defensive player, Kamara, D end on the day, got kicked out of the game in overtime for his second straight late hit and driving Shedeur Sanders into the ground. So I think he created an atmosphere that he didn't necessarily need to for the sake of shining the light on his team and his players in the game. And while they got a good game, we're kicking him right back out of the spotlight after this week, and he just looks like a cornball brother.
Now, let me say this before you talk about Colorado as players. I'm 51 years old. Fans, I love Deion Sanders. He's a contemporary of me in terms of I watched his entire career. Heck, man, he did a song called Must Be the Money. I remember the original 1981 song from Secret Weapon, Must Be the Music. That's how deep I go with Deion Sanders. I have done the two-step. G has seen me on the sidelines after a big three do the Deion two-step because that's us. So now as a coach, he's not worried about you taking his money because he's already got money. So he can just coach without worry of anything. And that is dangerous for the rest of the world, not Deion. He's been Deion Sanders his entire life. So he's better at it than you are. So for another coach, especially an African-American coach, because the BCA thing is real to me, the Black Coach Association, it's hard for us to get jobs. So when we go after each other for like no reason, there was no reason to even go anywhere with that. There was enough intrigue with the in-state rivalry, with the little brother, big brother thing. There's enough storylines to hold the week off. Man, Colorado State's got a lot of other games to play, and I hope you win something. Because if you end your season with no bowl bid and Colorado gets 6-7 wins, it's going to look bad on you. And more importantly for me, and then I'll close and move on, players are watching this. Players are watching. And I've got a 14-year-old that said, I don't even like Colorado, but I like that dude. And there's a lot of kids who are liking that. I like that dude. Again, Colorado cold, all of that, but man, I love what he's doing. So, G, from the player perspective, he came hard at your coach. How are you feeling about that before I move on?
Just another reason to rally around. It seems like every week Colorado's got something to get. The players have got something. Somehow, with the most famous coach in all of football, they have a rallying cry every week that they're able to kind of get around. You know, the first week they knocked off the runner-ups in TCU, and next week it's we're a ranked opponent. Are we actually deserving of it? And then this week you take a unwarranted shot at our coach. We're gonna sell 1.2 million sunglasses in a day, and we're gonna come out here and show up. So as it just gives Colorado that kind of chip on their shoulder, because at the end of the day, they aren't one of the major players.
Not at all.
That will be there stretch this season. So push they can get to get that extra win. Every win counts towards the recruitment next year, toward those players' value. So this just gave them and for it to be so unwarranted, like it was unprovoked. So it pissed a lot of people off, myself included. But you're giving these players that chip that we all know any athlete is dangerous with when they're able to show up motivated and focused.
Yes, and G is a state champion because we mentioned some things that people said. All right, Mel Tucker.
Fact.
Why, man? Why would you put yourself in this position? The story is out. But why? I'm still not understanding of why you would even attempt to pursue this type of relationship. And then why would you issue a statement? I'm not understanding. G, can you help me out and understand why Mel Tucker would even put himself in this position, sir?
I mean, we've seen this a couple of times. We just saw it with Ime Udoka and the Boston Celtics, and I
It's hard to get these jobs, man.
hard
Hard.
jobs into you had the Norvell reference where it's like you're bringing down these coaches, the BCA, and here's another example of one of them, messing with the fraternity. There's It's easy to say there's plenty fish in the sea. At the end of the day, I'm not here to. There have been a lot of comments on both sides about what's been alleged. I'm content to let that play out, but just to your point, why are you putting yourself in this situation? Some of the stuff that he said in his commentary, trying to defend himself, just go somewhere and sit quietly and let it play out.
No, if
But
you have to explain, you shouldn't have done it.
yeah,
Okay.
man. So
All right. Thank you,
very
Jim.
least he was in the wrong. Now, whether he was criminally negligible, we'll let that play out and see.
All right. So now, Ole Miss. Why? Ole Miss defensive tackle DeSanto Rollins, who said he was recently kicked off the team for missing practices and meetings during a quote mental health crisis, is suing the university and coach Lane Kiffin for failure to provide equal protection, racial and sexual discrimination, and multiple other allegations, according to a lawsuit filed last week. So Rollins is a backup lineman whose career has been marred by injury, and he's demanding $10 million in compensatory damage and $30 million in punitive damages. Okay, all of that will play itself out. But what I get is he's in a meeting with Lane Kiffin that he is legally recording. Um, and Lane Kiffin just was a coach at that moment. And instead of saying, take all the time you need and eating one scholarship, he's just, come on, man. Today is
Yeah,
a different athlete. You got to coach different. You got to deal with them differently. And why? Why can't you just let that one go? Everything is not a battle. So, gee, I know you looked at the notes, and this is a kid that probably wasn't going to be a high contributor, but what are we
well,
doing, man?
yeah, I know the story, not just from the notes, but I actually know this story. And we spoke a little bit about this in the NFL episode last week in terms of treating mental health like an injury. To that point, this one is a little tougher for me just because Lane Kiffin was a prick about it.
Yes.
He should have just ate the scholarship. This kid has played in 3 games in his career. Let it go. He's graduating in December. Let's get him out of here. But he also raised some points that were communicated where and leaked in this recording apparently. But he didn't really give the student athlete didn't really give the coaching staff an opportunity to really get to the bottom of the situation and help him the way he might have needed it, or give him that easy out he might have been looking for. He went to his his on-campus psychologist and, told him he wasn't, the injury had affected him mentally. His injury history affected him mentally. And, he's going through mental issues as a result of it. When he shows up the next week, the psychologist he's been talking said the coach and coaching staff wants to speak with you. He puts that off. I'm not ready to talk to them. I don't want to talk to them. I understand the mental aspect of it. I understand. But if we're saying treat it like an injury, you show up with a sprained meniscus. I
You
still
got to go
expect
see the trainer.
I expect an update to know what's going on. And he didn't give this coach that opportunity. But this is why we need more of these cases. We need to recognize and publicize that mental health is an issue in professional and amateur sports and learn how to deal with it. The very
Crazy, G, and thank you
wild.
for helping me process that.
Yeah, it's wild though when you. Well, I mean, we grew up if your neck's not hurt, if your knee's not hurt, you out there. But it's a different
It's a
world, and
different
so
world than
we're
where you
all
come
having
from.
it, and you got to figure it out.
All right. So my next why. NCAA, why are you trying to be hard about the transfer portal now? I know you don't like that people are going hither and yonder, back and forth, but who is it hurting? When I say that, I mean put your rules in place, create an academic component, and then allow the process to begin in a gradual state. You have multiple times where you just look kind of foolish in terms of who you let, when you let, and why you let. As long as they're making measurable progress to graduation and they have X amount of measurable credits, any kid in any school can go hither and yonder. You're treating a student athlete different when you don't have to. You don't have to. So again, create the academic component. Players have been run off from teams since the beginning of time. It happens. It's going to happen whether you have a rule or not. So again, don't be selective with all of this. You created the COVID rule. You did this. So as a result of you creating the COVID rules, please be gradual and mindful as we leave that era and move back to a quote sense of normalcy. Gee, can you tell me why they're still fighting something they shouldn't fight?
Are you asking me to tell you why the NCAA does what it does? We've been wondering that since the O'Bannons. Uh, and so this is just another case where and I'm always player forward, but the NCAA is always trying to catch up with the times. Um, Now, I won't lie, the transfer portal, while I am always player first, student athlete first, whether it's professional or amateur, uh, college sports is suffering because of the transfer portal. Some
Not
may say,
according to the ratings.
well, really? The ratings are up?
No, absolutely.
Hmm. Well, I have taken a good look at Mr. Nielsen's numbers of late. But I know the casual fan, particularly in college sports, myself and people I've talked to, it's a turnoff. There's no familiarity that we used to have. It's all about TV contracts and what can you do for me now. But players are going to want to shuffle. It's always been happened. It's always happened, and so NCAA has just kind of got to get with the times and figure out the rules the way they did with the NIL. But it's going to happen. You created the extra space and leverage for the player during COVID, and so you kind of got to live with that and tinker with it as you go.
All right. And my final why. Hey, Pac 12, why don't you know the definition of discovery? Why? Whitman, Washington County Superior Court judge has granted a temporary restraining order that was issued by Washington State and Oregon State last week. This request will block the 10 departed Pac 12 schools from holding a meeting of presidents, which is believed to have been to change the conference bylaw. This would prevent Washington State and Oregon State, as the two remaining members, from controlling the rights and revenue of the Pac 12. The Pac 12 scheduled a meeting for last week to discuss regular conference business, but the two remaining schools replied that this broke one of their bylaws. Read your rules, dummies. The 10 departing schools at the meeting were most likely financially motivated to dissolve the conference so they can receive their equity share. But conference bylaws state that if a school announces its departure earlier than August 1st, 2024, it loses its voting rights. Both Washington State and Oregon State want to be able to make decisions for the conference since it will directly affect their potential options. And if this goes to court, and since these are mostly public institutions, that means your emails and everything are up for public disclosure. So,
Mm.
gee, why can't we just go to the side, split the money, and have a joint statement? Talk to me, sir. Why does the Pac 12 want everybody's business in the street? Because if they emailed the Big Ten, that means the Big Ten's business in the street. If they had emails from the Big 12, that means the Big 12 business in the street. What are we doing? Talk to me, sir, as we close the
And,
segment.
and as Dan Snyder and John Gruden, what public emails will do to you. Honestly, the Pac-2 schools are. I got to side with them on this.
I ain't mad at them.
Yeah, the Pac-12. I see exactly what they're doing. These guys, these other schools. We got California schools, West Coast schools trying to go play in the ACC, but still have their cake and eat it too and get paid on the way out. So, you said it. Read your rules. It's clearly stated in those bylaws, and they were able to take it to court and get the temporary stay. And as it goes further, I have a hard time imagining that black and white is going to be flipped around some other way in these schools' favor.
All right. So when we get back, fans, great week, strictly for entertainment purposes only. Looking forward to talking about it. We'll be right back on the Odd Coaches Podcast.
The CKA SAVE Project is an industry leader in advocating for student-athlete, academic, and athletic needs. Through academic and athletic enrichment, the CKA SAVE Project is on the forefront of the issues facing 21st century student-athletes. As student-athletes continue to struggle to find a better balance between academic and athletic success, the CKA SAVE Project offers academic and athletic services to support student-athlete academic success, including academic skills assessment, academic and athletic consulting, academic monitoring, academic and athletic workshops. For more information or to schedule a free consultation, contact Dr. Keith Adams by email at cka@ckasaveproject.org.
Welcome back to the Odd Coaches Podcast in segment 3. Let's talk about things strictly for entertainment purposes only. So the OCP top 5. We got Georgia at 1, Michigan at 2, Ohio State at 3, and let's just go USC at 4 because they're winning. They're in the Pac-12. Outside looking in, Florida State, Oklahoma, and Texas. And no real group of 5 school is doing anything. If I had a group of 5 school at 5, it would be Memphis because they're undefeated, but they're no good. Okay, so our focus is the college football playoff. So, G, who are your top 4 in terms of if the season ended today, you'd have them in the college football playoff?
I think we'd have to go Georgia, and the Big Ten is going to decide itself through those teams playing each other between Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State. At the moment, give me Michigan. That Ohio State offense hasn't really begun to click yet. A few teams closer than I expected. Penn State looks good, but at the moment, give me Michigan. I'll take USC again. Best player out there, and they're winning, so let's go for it. And let's round it out with Oklahoma. They're looking powerful. Texas looks good, and again, all of this will play out in the coming weeks.
It'll fix itself.
But Florida State, Texas, Notre Dame, there's a few teams in there that will make themselves heard as the season goes on.
All right. Season-long bets. Clemson over 9.5. They got 2 wins. Tulane over 9. They've got 2 wins. Maryland over 7.5. They're already at 3 wins. Go Terps. Texas over 9.5. They're at 3 wins. Troy messed me up. They're 1-2 right now. So, oops. That might be an oops. Notre Dame is over 8.5. They're at 4-0. Utah over 8.5 to 3-0. And Tennessee, I was not looking for that loss, by the way. That might mess me up. So in terms of my actual picks, last week I was 2-3, which is 40%. This week I was 4-1. Gee, I was on it, man. And overall, I am 7-13. Let me tell you what I put my picks on. I put K-State minus 4.5. I have been 0-4 with my game of the week spreads, though. Got to do better. My over-under was Florida State over 48.5. Got that big win. 2-play was Arkansas over 47.5 and Buffalo over 54.5. I think Liberty scored 55 by themselves. So, hey, we didn't say who was going to win. We just said who was going to score. Okay.
What was the motivation to put that pick in? Buffalo or Liberty?
So, fans, for you don't know, I use CBS Sportsline, and I also cover the leagues every week. And Buffalo has an offense, Liberty has an offense, and that number was something that I thought they would hit. So between the data and the experts, that's how I pick. So I am very boring. I look at the stuff all week long, and you see I post on Saturday. So
Yeah.
I actually know these smaller schools because, again, we go around the territories every week. So fans, if you pay attention to us, there's going to be names we mention. Just like last year, we told you every week in basketball, San Diego State actually knows how to play, and FAU are good. So when it came to tournament time, they weren't new to me. They were new to you.
Yeah, listen up, folks.
All right. So three play. My money line picks. Who's just going to win? Florida State was going to win. Colorado and Fresno State. I was comfortable with that. So although I won a little bit on that, that's okay. I'm going to the pay window. And my upset of the week. Oh, by the way, I'm 2-2 with my 2 plays of the week. I'm 2-2 with my 3 plays. And upset of the week was JMU over Troy, 2-2. So we're getting better, but that week 1, week 0, still got a ways to go to get it. And the goal is 53% fans. That's all I'm trying to do. I'm amateur. I'm just trying to make more than I lose.
What we're all trying to do.
So, week 4, we've got a good set of games. So here's some games of note to follow. Florida State's playing Clemson. UTSA's playing Tennessee, and both of them are coming off losses. Tennessee, you better mollywop them. UCLA is playing Utah. Colorado's playing Oregon. This is when the bubble burst, but we anticipated that. But hey, we'll play it out. I don't know the spreads or anything. Oregon State against Washington State. They're the Pac-2's best because they're the only ones. They're the only two. Oklahoma's playing Cincinnati, and Cincinnati's coming off a loss. Ole Miss against Alabama. That's going to cause me pause because Alabama's no good.
And on the quarterback.
App State is playing Wyoming. That's going to be a good one. Ohio State is playing Notre Dame. 3 cheers for old Notre Dame. Iowa is playing Penn State. Finally, Iowa plays somebody. And come on, James, just take them out of their misery. I don't want them in the top 25. They're the dullest top 25 team in the country. And UCF is playing Kansas State. Again, I want to always take an opportunity for the smaller conferences to go against the bigger conferences. Are there any games next week that tickle your fancy or excite your soul? An old Jermaine Jackson reference.
It's Oklahoma. Well, Oregon, Colorado's going to be that team every week until they lose. They finally got, well, I won't say TCU wasn't a real test, but now they've got a game that they are truly expected to lose with a team that will hang points up on them. They've already announced they expect Hunter to miss a couple of weeks. So interested to see if the Buffaloes can keep the party going there. But I think the game of the week is Ohio State, Notre Dame. That will pretty much decide the fate of Notre Dame.
Notre Dame in week 4, we'll know if you're
we'll know. Ohio State will still have shots with Michigan and Penn State. But this will be this is one of those teams that Notre Dame has traditionally gone out and got spanked by. Go up and beat up on all the other teams. But when it comes to Ohio State, Alabama, and teams at the very top, LSU, they get spanked. So we'll see. That's the game I'm looking forward to. We'll see what happens there.
All right. So fans, to close. Again, want to give a shout out and promotion to our Monday motivational video. The goal behind our Monday motivational video is to provide some intentionality to student athletes every week. The feedback has been great. We appreciate it. We will continue to push that content out. We also have merch to close the show. We want to continue to raise money to help our organization, and a portion of the proceeds from our t-shirt fundraiser goes to providing Find the Balance books for high school student athletes at underserved schools. So again, go to www.ckasaveproject.itemorder.com. Get yourself a shirt, 2 or 3. It all goes to a good cause. So close us out. Anything that you want to say about this week's college wrap up?
No, just congratulations to Dion. Without you knowing, I've always supported Notre Dame. Congratulations to Maryland football. Shout out Octavian Smith. I've always been a Notre Dame fan, kind of support Maryland locally. But Dion has turned us all into Colorado fans this year. So I'm just happy at the excitement around that program. It was fun watching College Game Day yesterday. Looking forward to seeing what they do next week against Oregon.
He had The Rock, he had Wu-Tang, had Master
Little
P,
Wayne.
Offset, I mean, what in the world is going on there? So shout out to him. So on behalf of G, I'm Dr. Keith Adams saying thank you for listening and or watching the Odd Coaches podcast, and we will see you on the sidelines. Till next time, take care.
The Odd Coaches podcast is sponsored by the CKA Save Project. The CKA Save Project is an industry leader in providing student-athlete academic and athletic support. From assessing student-athletes' academic and athletic skills, to measuring and monitoring student-athlete academic progress, to improving student-athlete time management and organizational skills, the CKA Save Project provides wraparound services for student-athletes from middle school through college. For more information, visit us on the web at www.ckasaveproject.org or schedule a free consultation with Dr. Keith Adams by emailing cka@ckasaveproject.org.